Hello and welcome to the show. Now, the shift towards OTT streaming and particularly direct-to-consumer services, that's DTC, is not really up for dispute. Now, this was true before the pandemic and even more so as a consequence of it.
Yeah, 80% of consumers in the US now subscribe to at least one paid streaming video service, according to Deloitte Insights, June 2020. This staggering number goes a long way to demonstrate the rapidly evolving media landscape and consumer viewing preferences.
So today we're speaking to Erik Ramberg, who's VP Head of Global Business Development at MediaKind. Now, Erik's going to be walking us through why the popularity of direct-to-consumer services has seen such a sharp rise, how they can potentially benefit broadcasters and content owners, and what future service models might look like in the future.
Yeah, hi Eric, nice to see you. So can you highlight some of the technological advancements that you're seeing impacting the provision of direct-to-consumer offerings right now?
Thank you. There are several different technology trends that have really come together over the past 5 years and kind of at this strength point now, this maturation essentially in the industry to be able to take advantage of them. Certainly, all the investments globally from a cloud infrastructure point of view are super important. Being able to have multiple availability zones within a region to be able to foster high reliability services. All those aspects of it are key parts to it. But further, it's really that adoption across the industry of the cloud tech stack, understanding, container development orchestrated by Kubernetes, et cetera, the mentality of DevSecOps, that's developer security operations, so that way people have this continuous mentality of how they are creating a service, maintaining the service, securing the service. Those are key parts of it. Specifically, though, in the M&E space, I think it's the media and entertainment space. It's important to talk about things that, like, I think MediaKind is especially strong in, and that is bringing in the tradition of studio broadcaster quality levels, the tradition of operator high reliability requirements in there, and really kind of it really kind of all comes together when you talk about live streaming, where you need not just that high quality level, not just that reliability, but you need the lowest latency, you need it to be highly secured. All those pieces really come together and push the technology to the limits.
Right. So just to maybe rewind it a little bit, Erik, there, what do you specifically mean by direct to consumer? Because most things are direct to consumer, and what's the attraction for broadcasters and content owners to provide these offerings?
Maybe to super simplify it, direct to consumer means the entity of which is producing the content has a direct relationship with the consumer. Okay, and that is really so key to it. So that means that they, in terms of putting their brand in front of the consumer and owning how their brand is presented to the consumer, being able to maintain an engagement with the consumer, and very importantly, to understand how they utilize the service and consume that those assets, that whatever the content happens to be, the data aspect of that. What are they willing to pay for? What ads do they watch? Do they not watch? All those pieces like that. Those are really, really some of the key pieces of it, that why they want to do it and what it means to be able to have that direct relationship with the consumer.
Okay.
And how do they benefit? What's the appeal of doing this? You might have already answered that, but I'm struggling with what's the real argument for doing it this way?
Yeah, I think the real argument is to be able to, one way to look at it is to stand back and look at the content creation cycle. Okay, how it was 10 years ago was really, it wasn't a virtuous cycle necessarily. So there was lots of different pieces in the chain to be able to create the content and then get it out in front of a consumer and be able to measure and understand how it's used and whether it impacts, how it impacts the consumer. By having this tighter cycle, They can then affect their investments going forward in terms of whether it's films, or whether it's episodic series, whether it's sports, and how they go beyond the game and create even more richer experiences. All those things, they can have a much tighter circle, which, as we know, the whole business cycle is so much tighter than it was 20 years ago. This is now replicating itself in the content area.
Mm.
Yeah, I get that now.
Yeah. So the COVID-19 pandemic, Erik, it's obviously impacted many things, and we've seen and spoken to lots of people that are doing more streaming now and OTT services. What sort of long-term trends are you seeing emerging?
Yeah, it's a great question. As you say, so many of these things have been moving in this direction for a long time, and we knew what the destination was going to be, but it was just sort of really when, and the pandemic really has accelerated so many aspects of it. I mean, when you think about it, like, what are some of the key things that people needed? Well, they needed to entertain themselves. They needed to entertain their kids, their family. There was more sort of a need for that, because all the other sorts of aspects of life kind of were out of touch, unable to hit. They also needed to replace that lost social contact aspect of it. That's the energy that, from seeing people or being at an event and having those things happen. They were, again, searching for something to replace those things. And so, those things are really, drove so much of the adoption and sort of I would say really the breadth, essentially, of use of D2C over the past year, and also the variety of it. There was, no one would think of doing a film festival like online, virtually in the past. No one would think of doing an intimate jazz concert and just stream it out to 500 people and say that was a worthwhile event. But the pandemic has really changed the landscape for that. Well, going forward, I think maybe a key aspect of it is that, and let's look past like the pandemic, this transition period we're going to go through over the next year or so, when some people are more comfortable and some people are less comfortable about, getting back out and sort of being involved in those things. If we look beyond that, what I see is really an opportunity here for more people to participate in events than they did in the past. And so I'm going to focus here maybe on events, because that's so much of what was lost in the pandemic. So, whether that's because I'm here, based in the Bay Area, California, and there's a concert going on in London, I could attend. I don't have to buy an airplane ticket to be able to see it. Maybe I have a disability and I can't get into a venue or something like that and be able to have maybe the best seat of the house. I would like to be, courtside, and I can't be courtside, for some reason. Maybe, my life, the structure of my life, because of with my family or my job or other stuff like that, prevents me from being able to, attend certain things. Now we're going to have this opportunity to be able to bring more people into the fold. One of the film festivals we worked with last year, they were like they had like 30 or 40% of the people who attended were first-time attendees who wanted to attend in the past, but they couldn't attend. And this is nothing to do with the pandemic. It was just because of other reasons. And that's just, I think, a really interesting aspect that will be different in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm interested, in the future, event organisers and broadcasters, content owners will be wanting more engagement. I think that seems to be a big thing.
Yep.
I'm kind of interested now. You've come on. We haven't really found out, where does MediaKind fit in? What are you doing? What are you going to be doing in the future to help these? How are you evolving your product? Your offerings.
Yeah, thank you. I think a key part of it I kind of alluded to earlier is the fact that our history, our tradition, our legacy is with working with the broadcasters, the sports leagues, with the operators at all, who in their traditional way of delivery, and D2C, I say pre-pandemic was really just in an early maturation phase, and where maybe the bar in terms of quality, reliability, being able to have, low latency at scale, those pieces that weren't quite at the same needs as the traditional industry was. Well, now that's different. Now it needs to be at that same high level. And so what we uniquely can bring really across the media workflows is that ability to bring those super high levels of quality, of reliability, of latency, of engaged consumer UIs and experiences, bring that then to the D2C, and then really sort of help that industry to really maximize its potential from a business standpoint, and to really do some new things in creative ways.
So Erik, it's the time of year then we'd normally be packing our bags and getting ready to head over to your side of the globe and Vegas and NAB. Obviously, that's been postponed until October. But if it was going ahead now, what would be the key message, technology or solution that MediaKind would be headlining on your booth?
Mm-hmm. I think the key part of it, messages would be really taking our history and talking about sort of new ways of doing it, sort of the flexibility of the cloud. How do you easily be able to deploy out and to adapt to changing scale or unanticipated scale needs? Do that while maintaining, that pristine UHD quality, that level of reliability from not just being able to watch a stream, but being able to transact against a stream, or being able to engage with a stream, being able to choose which stream you want to have. The level of flexibility that the cloud tech brings, to the experience creator. And so it's not just the content, but it's the experience creation piece of it. Is we're just barely touching the surface for it. And our message would be about what our technology will do, will really give you this great, fantastic new toolbox that you can use to start to explore and understand how is it most relevant, how does it really help to amplify the value that you bring to your consumers.
Excellent.
Absolutely. No, I think it's the future is going to be fascinating. Thank you very much, Erik, for joining us today, and of course, as always, thanks to Mediaproxy for their support making these shows possible. You can find out more about them at mediaproxy.com, and we'll see you next time.